Hello, I'm going to continue reading Dear Mr. Henshaw by Beverly Cleary, who just passed away at 104 years old. Wow. Dear Mr. Henshaw, February 15th. I haven't written to you for a long time because I know you are busy, but I need help with the story I'm writing for the Young Writer's Notebook, yearbook. I got started, but I don't know how to finish it. My story is about a man 10 feet tall who drives a big truck, the kind my dad drives. The man is made of wax, and every time he crosses the desert, he melts a little. He makes so many trips and melts so much he finally can't handle the gears or reach the brakes. That is as far as I can get. What should I do now? The boys in my class who are writing about monsters just bring in a new monster on the last page to finish off the villains with the laser. That kind of ending doesn't seem right to me. I don't know why. Please help. Just a postcard will do. Hopefully, Lee Botts. P.S. Until I started trying to write a story, I wrote in my diary almost every day. February 28th. Dear Mr. Henshaw, thank you for answering my letter. I was surprised that you had trouble writing stories when you were my age. I think you are right. Maybe I am not ready to write a story. I understand what you mean. A character in a story should solve a problem or change in some way. I can see that a wax man who melts until he's a puddle wouldn't be there to solve anything, and melting isn't the sort of change you mean. I suppose somebody could turn up on the last page and make candles out of him. That would change him all right, but that is not the ending I want. I asked Miss Martinez if I had to write a story for young writers, and she said I could write a poem or a description. Your grateful friend Lee. P.S. I bought a copy of Ways to Amuse a Dog at a garage sale. I hope you don't mind. From the Diary of Lee Botts, Volume 2. Thursday, March 1st. I'm getting behind in this diary for several reasons, including working on my story and writing to Mr. Henshaw. Really, not just pretend. I also had to buy a new notebook because I had filled up the first one. The same day, I bought a beat-up black lunchbox in the thrift shop down the street and started carrying my lunch in it. The kids were surprised, but nobody made fun of me because a black lunchbox isn't the same as one of those square boxes covered with cartoon characters that first and second graders carry. A couple of boys asked if it was my dad's. I just grinned and said, "Where do you think I got it?" The next day, my little slices of salami rolled around cream cheese were gone, but I expected that. But I'll get that thief yet. I'll make him really sorry he ate all the best things out of my lunch. Next, I went to the library for books on batteries. I took out a couple of easy books on electricity, really easy, because I have never given much thought to batteries. About all I know is that when you want to use a flashlight, the battery is usually dead. I finally gave up on my story about the 10-foot wax man, which was really pretty dumb. I thought I would write a poem about butterflies for young writers, because a poem can be short, but it is hard to think about butterflies and burglar alarms at the same time. So I studied electricity books instead. The books didn't have directions for an alarm in a lunchbox, but I learned enough about batteries and switches and insulated wires, so I think I can figure it out myself. Friday, March 2nd. Back to the poem tonight. The only rhyme I can think of for butterfly is flutterby. I can think up rhymes like trees and breeze, which are pretty boring, and then I think of wheeze and sneeze. A poem about butterflies wheezing and sneezing seems silly. And anyway, a couple of girls are already writing poems about monarch butterflies that flutter by. Sometimes I start a letter to Dad thanking him for the $20, but I can't finish that either. I don't know why. Saturday, March 3rd. Today I took my lunchbox and Dad's $20 to the hardware store and looked around. I found an ordinary light switch, a little battery, and a cheap doorbell. While I was looking around for the right kind of insulated wire, a man who had been watching me, boys my age always get watched when they go into stores, asked if he could help me. He was a nice old gentleman who said, "What are you planning to make, son?" Son? He called me son, and my dad calls me kid. I didn't want to tell the man, but when he looked at the things I was holding, he grinned and said, "Having trouble with your lunch, aren't you?" I nodded and said, "I'm trying to make a burglar alarm." He said, "That's what I guessed. I've had workmen in here with the same problem." It turned out that I needed a 6-volt lantern battery instead of the battery I had picked out. He gave me a couple of tips and, after I paid for the things, a little slap on the back and said, "Good luck, son." I tore home with all the things I bought. First, I made a sign from my door that said, "Keep out, Mom." That means you. Then I went to work, fastening one wire from the battery to the switch and from the other side of the switch to the doorbell. Then I fastened a second wire from the battery to the doorbell. It took me a while to get it right. Then I taped the battery in one corner of the lunchbox and the doorbell in another. I stood the switch up at the back of the box and taped that in place too. Here I ran into a problem. I thought I could take the wire clamp meant to hold a thermos bottle inside the lunchbox lid and hook it under the switch if I reached in carefully as I closed the box. The clamp wasn't quite long enough. After some thinking and experimenting, I twisted a wire loop onto it. Then I closed the box just enough so I could get my hand inside and push the wire loop over the button on the switch before I took my hand out and closed the box. Then I opened the box. My burglar alarm worked. That bell inside the box went off with a terrible rocket that brought Mom to the door. "Lee, what on earth is going on in there?" she shouted above the alarm. I let her in and gave her a demonstration of my burglar alarm. She laughed and said it was a great invention. One thing was bothering me. Would my sandwich muffle the bell? Mom must have been wondering the same thing because she suggested taping a piece of cardboard into the lid that would make a shelf for my sandwich. I did, and that worked too. I can't wait till Monday. Monday, March 5th. Today, Mom packed my lunch carefully, and we tried the alarm to see if it still worked. It did. Good and loud. While I got to school, Mr. Fidley said, "Nice to see you smiling, Lee. You should try it more often." I parked my lunchbox behind the partition and waited. I waited all morning for the alarm to go off. Miss Martinez asked if I had my mind on my work. I pretended I did, but all the time I was really waiting for my alarm to go off so I could dash back behind the partition and tackle the thief. When nothing happened, I began to worry. Maybe the loop had somehow slipped off the switch on the way to school. Lunchtime came. The alarm still hadn't gone off. We all picked up our lunches and went off to the cafeteria. When I set my box on the table in front of me, I realized I had a problem, a big problem. If the loop hadn't slipped off the switch, my alarm was still triggered. I just sat there staring at my lunchbox, not knowing what to do. "How come you're not eating?" Barry asked with his mouth full. Barry's sandwiches are never cut in half, and he always takes a big bite out of one side to start. Everybody at the table was looking at me. I thought about saying I wasn't hungry, but I was. I thought about taking my lunchbox out into the hall to open, but if the alarm was still triggered, there was no way I could open it quietly. Finally, I thought, here goes. I unsnapped the two fasteners on the box and held my breath as I opened the lid. Wow, my alarm went off. The noise was so loud it startled everybody at the table, including me, and made everyone in the cafeteria look around. I looked up and saw Mr. Fridley grinning at me over by the garbage can. Then I turned off the alarm. Suddenly, everybody seemed to be noticing me. The principal, who always prowls around keeping an eye on things at lunchtime, came over to examine my lunchbox. He said, "That's quite an invention you have there." "Thanks," I said, pleased that the principal seemed to like my alarm. Some of the teachers came out of their lunchroom to see what the noise was all about. I had to give a demonstration. It seems I wasn't the only one who had things stolen from my lunch, and all the kids said they wanted lunchboxes with alarms too, even those whose lunches were never good enough to have anything stolen. Barry said he would like an alarm like that on the door of his room at home. I began to feel like some sort of hero. Maybe I'm not so medium after all. One thing bothers me, though. I still don't know who's been robbing my lunch. I'm going to stop there. Have a great day. Bye.